everybody. Welcome back to Tavian's World of Reptiles. I hope you are all doing well and taking care of yourselves. So, I was recently asked a question about how often I handle my snakes. Now, this is something that I have covered already on this channel, except it was a very long time ago, kind of like in the beginning of my YouTube experience. And of course, my answers have changed a lot since then, not just because. Hey everybody, welcome back to Tavian's World of Reptiles. I hope you are all doing well and taking care of yourselves. So recently I was asked a question about how often I handle my snakes. Now this is a topic that I have totally covered in my videos before, but of course that was done in the earlier stages of this channel and a lot has changed since then. For instance, the number of animals I had comparatively, compared to back then and compared to now, has gone up a lot. And so my answer has changed a bit based off of that alone, but also the way I view my animals and how I actually interact with my animals has changed a lot since then. I've definitely started focusing on my animals more on an individual basis, not just as individual species, but as individual snakes altogether. And so how I handle my snakes has changed a lot. Now, way back then, my answer was something like, oh, every day. I handle my snakes every day. Every single one of them gets handled at least an hour or so every day. And of course, that was 100% possible back then, but things have changed a lot now based off what I already just said. Now, how I handle my snakes these days are a lot different. Now you guys know how I open up my doors and I kind of let my snakes out. Now I do have snakes that are way more active than others. For instance, ones like Cruella here, Rumpelstiltskin, Antiope, Shere Khan. Those are ones. Oh, and Tigger. Those are ones who are usually the first ones to come out of the doors when I do open them. So those ones get a lot more interacting with me than the others. Those are literally almost an everyday type of interaction there, unless I'm away at my partner's house. But otherwise, those are snakes that get handled on a very daily basis. Now, of course, there are my other snakes who are more in tubs, like Zeus, my ball python, and Iroh, my ball python, as well as Rafiki, my blood python. Now, those don't get handled as much because they aren't really the most active of snakes, but not Rafiki, Zeus and Iroh tend to be a little bit more active than Rafiki. You know, sometimes I can open up their tubs and they will come out, but a lot of times they don't really come out too much. So my interaction with those three is a little bit less so than these other ones like Cruella here. I might pull out those three maybe about 4 or 5 times a week as opposed to every single day, and it's not really usually a very long handling session. It's more so just something short. I might open the doors and let them out. I'll leave that open for a while, and if they come out, great. But otherwise, when I do handle them, it's maybe more like a 20 or 30 minute handling, not very long one, and then they kind of go back into their enclosures. Then, of course, I have my boas who are way more less active. We've got like Luna and Maleficent and Artemis. Now, Artemis is a big girl, and she is way less active than the other ones. Of course, naturally, she's a bigger bodied snake, and of course, she's recovered a lot from being really obese. So, moving is just not a thing that she's in tone to do, and none of them are all really super active. But not just that, when they are active, it usually tends to be when I'm sleeping, and so catching them when they're active and wanting to come out and to begin with doesn't really happen as often as it does with some of my other snakes. So with them, I might have to actually go in to interact with them. Not that they necessarily need it, but I don't want them to forget what it is to have that kind of human interaction. And so I will go in and I will interact with them maybe three or 4 times a week. So a little less than the ones that are in the tubs. But that's just because they're not nearly as active. However, I do know this, that when they are out, they are way more active. And so while I know that they necessarily won't come out on their own, they all do tend to enjoy the time that they get when they are out. They become very active. They start exploring, and that's all great, and it works out for them. But I just don't like to stress them out by too much with reaching in and pulling them out of their comfort zones when they're all curled up and they're sleeping. As compared to some of my other snakes, I pull them out and I open the doors when they're already pretty active, so I don't really like to stress them too much. But yeah, and then of course I have, like my Rosy Boa. He's pretty active. He's one that comes out when the door is open. But then I've got my Doom Rose Boa, who's not very active, and doesn't really come out when the door is open. And because he is still young, unlike the rest of them who I don't really force to come out too much, I do pull him out a lot more so than the other ones, because he is going to grow into a really large snake, and I want him to know what it is to be handled a lot while he's young. And then the older he gets, the less he actually has to be interacted with. But while he is still young, I definitely try to give him as much handling as he will tolerate without actually stressing him out too much. Jeez Louise, Cruella, you're everywhere. So when it comes to how often I handle my snakes, it really is just a snake by snake basis. Even snakes that fall within the same species don't get nearly as much time with me as some of the other ones do. So it's really just about paying attention to your snakes and how often they're interactive, and how interactive they are with you, whether they're pretty right there at the door ready to come out, whether you have to actually go in and get them, and then just how much that stresses them and how they react to that. If they are one that really stresses when that happens, and you might want to pull back with how often you do it. But if you can reach in and you get them out and there's no stress about it, then you can do that as much as you feel comfortable with doing. But like I said, it really is just a snake by snake case. So if you hear that, that's my iguana climbing up her stick right now. But anyway, so yeah, this was just a recap on that, to talk a little bit more about where my thoughts are at that now as compared to where they were way back when I first covered this topic. As I said back then, the answer was every day for all of them, but now that answer has changed. Evie. Anyway, that answer has changed quite a bit into being a more just like case by case basis with my snakes. So I hope that was helpful to the person who asked about that. And if not, if you have any more questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. If you have anything that I have not yet covered in my videos that you're interested in hearing about, please drop that in the comments. I know a lot of you are new, so haven't been around as long, so maybe some of these things I've already covered, but I would not mind coming back to cover them again without any stress. So anyway, you all take care. Love yourselves. Love your reptiles. Love your loved ones. And you guys keep spreading those herbs.